Imagine feeling afraid, as if you are being chased by a menacing shark, simply by listening to John Williams' 1975 Jaws theme song. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. Today I'll discuss about how a viewer can become psychologically impacted music through a film. First, I'll discuss what music is. Secondly, I'll discuss the link of music in our brains. And finally, I'll discuss how it's used in films. So, what is music exactly? Music is a sort of series of sounds combined in a way to produce a sort of harmony. That harmony is then transcribed in our brain to produce a sort of pleasant sound through certain elements. For example, being pitch, rhythm, dynamic, tones, stuff like that. And music is also a display of emotions. For example, an artist tends to write how they feel through the lyrics, which is why certain songs which are meant to be sad have words like despair, depression, regret, sorrow, stuff like that, because it makes a person feel sad. Certain pitches and certain tones tend to display different emotions. For example, higher pitch and higher tones is mainly used in pop music and dance because people like to be happy within dance around. Meanwhile, lower pitches and tones tend to be slower and sadder. For example, Moonlight Sonata from Beethoven being a very sad and slow song, the way it's being played from the piano. And then music is also an art form, or it's also a cultural activity. For example, you say being represented through the Star Spangled Banner, or Russia being represented by the state anthem of the Soviet Union. And then past music is usually considered pieces of art from great composers. Going back to Beethoven, his Symphony Number Five is considered one of the world's greatest pieces of art, or music, should we say? And then next is the link between music and our brains. Music can have a sort of emotional attachment to a past memory, depending on the person. Music influences how we remember stuff or our memory, according to Lecker in a 2015 academic journal published by Music and Moving Image. This attachment could be a loved one's who has passed away, like it was their favorite music or song, or a graduation ceremony, and they have a certain song playing in which this person will remember for the rest of their life. And then certain tones tend to release certain hormones. According to Rana in the 2018 academic journal published by Positive Psychology, I believe, yes, psychology, music can stimulate a certain feeling or arouse a certain feeling, and it usually gives a person a sort of reward to it, which is why happiness is triggered only through higher tones or higher pitches, and it's released throughout the body from dopamine. Meanwhile, melatonin hormone triggers the sadness throughout the body, and it's only achieved through lower and deeper tones. And then emotions can be triggered strongly or softly depending on the music. It has the power to take a person to a whole new world and can impact them psychologically of their well-being, and this is of course according to previously mentioned Rana. And a stronger tone will only bring out a stronger emotion, of course, because the brain can pick it up better because it's much louder. Meanwhile, a softer tone doesn't really tell the brain, hey, you gotta release more hormones. And additionally, music is used in films to give a sort of impact to the viewer, which is which is why music can set a certain tone depending on the way the film wants it to be set. Um, which is why certain melodies tend to display the happiness, fear, sadness, things like that. Which is why in horror movies, fear is usually expressed through a melody being all screechy and high pitched, but like eerie. And then an auditory stimulus or sound, should I say, can override what we see. For example, if according to Rosenfeld and Steffens in an academic journal published by Psychomusicology, Music, Mind, and Brain, if a flash is perceived first than the lightning itself, or the sound, should I say, then it could override what we see. For example, if the sound comes first and let's say it's a lightning flash, but it's not the lightning flash we're used to, it can completely screw us up on what we think and feel. And then it also makes us feel sympathy or empathy, depending on the way the film wants to use it. For example, a character could die, and we could feel sad on the because it's playing a very slow song, in which we feel like that person has truly died. And to sum up my final thoughts, first I talked about what music is. Secondly, I talked about the link of music in our brains. And finally, I talked about how it's used in films. Today, I discussed how a viewer can become psychologically impacted through music and films. As mentioned before, you can imagine feeling afraid as if you're being chased by a menacing shark simply by listening to uh, John Williams' 1975 Jaws theme song. Da-dun.